We're now heading into the last doubleheader before we go into the summer break, Spa and Hungary. And it will be the last huge upgrades of the 2025 season. We will see bits and pieces probably in the upcoming ones after the summer break, but that's going to be parts tested for 2026, and we could even see some parts tested for the next season here in Spa and Hungary. Both of these tracks offer completely different characteristics, so it'll be very good to see whether these upgrades work and whether or not they can actually transfer them over to the new 2026 car. There's definitely plenty to cover on the big teams, and even some of the midfield teams that are trying to really sustain that position. Right before I hop into that, thank you all for the support. Amazing, we hit 88,000, so thank you all so much for that. Let's keep it going. If you're new here, please go ahead and subscribe. Would mean the world. Let's get started with this video. Per usual, I mentioned the teams that are not bringing upgrades, and from what I have heard so far, RB will not be having anything, Sauber as well. Alpine, as we know, has really kind of put a halt to anything in the 2025 car. They're just focusing on 2026, and they are 10th. They're probably going to stay 10th. And Haas just brought a very big upgrade in Silverstone, so it's pretty much donezo for them as well. But now, talking about the midfield, let's talk about the team in green, Aston Martin. They have confirmed upgrades. We've heard it from Fernando. Now Andy Cowell has talked about it, so we know something is coming here. They had a very big floor upgrade in Silverstone. Fernando ended up actually saying it did give him a bit of confidence. It's not like it was something very drastic, but from what I've heard, it's a test floor, nothing too insane, just to see if the wind tunnel is working correctly. And the team has confirmed that everything was working to plan and it was doing what they wanted it to do. This next set of upgrades, right now, I don't know what they could be, but there have been a couple things that have been rumored that I want to go in depth about. First, Adrian Newey has kind of spoken about some parts being tested on the car. It's possible we see here in Spa something to do with the front suspension is what I've heard rumored. And this is mainly so they get good correlation on the 26 car. It's a part that should be more important for the 26 car than 25. It is going to be a sprint race, so a lot of these teams that are bringing the update packages are going to have to refine and really set that up correctly as quick as possible. But we've seen it be done plenty of times and work out, especially for a team like McLaren. It's just supposed to build off of what they had in Silverstone with the floor upgrade, so I expect some visible stuff on the upper part of the car. I have heard also some rumors about a front wing, but don't take that as fact just yet. This could be a very good track for them if they nail the setup. It's a track that I think for the AMR 25 should suit it pretty well. Another midfield team that's had a pretty bad run of races with the exception of Alex Albon is Williams. And as I talked about, there should have been an upgrade in Silverstone on the cooling package. Now that has actually been said it will be brought in Spa. They've been very quiet on the whole upgrade front, and since the beginning of the season, they've been talking about not bringing too many updates, focusing on 2026, and they've definitely stayed true to their word. But this track will bring something to help with the whole cooling package issues that they have, and not being able to extract everything out of that FW47. I've heard here and there from different sources rumors of a floor, but considering James Vowles himself has been very quiet on that front and said it's really only going to be something to help out extract the most out of the performance they can with the FW47, and there's too many inherent problems to actually make this car a top 4 contender, I would just expect something to the cooling and not anything that's being rumored at this point. But with that, we can talk about the top 4 because there's plenty I want to go in depth about with these guys. For starters, we're going to talk about Red Bull, the team that ever since the Silverstone GP has been only in the news and for negative things that add it. They have a driver that's debating on whether staying for the team or going to Mercedes, but Helmut Marko has confirmed upgrades for Spa and Hungary, and he has said, "We will have new parts on the car for both weekends and hope that this has a positive effect." Here and there, I see news reports saying that the car is done with upgraded packages. We're not going to see anything else added to this RB21. But considering they want to try and keep Max, they're going to keep putting on little bits and pieces here to show him they can improve the car. There have also been a lot of talks saying, can they actually improve the car for the second driver? Because Yuki is clearly struggling. Whoever sits next to him cannot compete with Max himself. And obviously they need 2 cars to actually win a championship. It would be much more useful for a guy like Max if he had a teammate that was up there fighting for some positions that actually mattered. Every update they do bring this car, it gives them very little performance, but doesn't change much on how bad the car's characteristics are. They brought a rear wing that was literally Monza spec that we will probably see in Spa again. But if it rains, this rear wing is tragic and gives very little downforce to the car. Yes, it's good in the straights, and Max made it work somehow in the high speed and actually kept a higher speed than that of Oscar, who had a better rear wing for downforce. But that doesn't take away from the fact that this car just looked awful to handle in trickier conditions. Similar to Red Bull, Mercedes is also bringing performance upgrades talked about from the directors over there for Spa and Hungary. It's kind of funny, they mention every single race pretty much they have a performance upgrade or two, and then we end up getting to that track. It ends up being something circuit specific. Very little has been done on the upper section of the car and really the visible stuff we get to see, but the underfloor has been changed a lot, and I'm not really sure if it's given them the performance they've wanted, because there are tracks, and especially if the conditions are set in a more cooler temperature, then Mercedes looks like a car that can contend for a win or a podium. But Silverstone should have been a very good GP for them. It was cold, there was wet weather conditions, and it was quite the opposite. The car looked very tricky to handle. Yes, there were some strategy blunders that definitely played a part in where they finished in the pecking order, but even without those strategy blunders, I don't think George ever would have gotten close to what those McLarens were at. The pace the team in orange has is pretty damn ridiculous, and I think it's going to be very hard to actually catch them no matter the conditions for any team. And with that being said, McLaren is bringing over the floor they tested it in Silverstone for FP1. All they did in Silverstone was test out that floor, see if it was correlating correctly, and now Stella has confirmed to us they will use that floor for the rest of the season. We're going to see it here in Spa and in Hungary. The car itself is already perfect pretty much in any condition, especially in the hot where teams struggle with tire wear. They're perfect. They cannot get caught up to. And now adding a floor that supposedly is giving them more performance, it's going to be pretty much impossible to beat this team. There is a team I will talk about for here, the next team, obviously, red team. And they have something pretty big, which they say could possibly put them in the fight with McLaren, but they always like to say a lot without actually delivering it. But just finishing up on McLaren, that floor is being brought. I expect that to be the last update they have of the season, unless they test some 2026 parts. This team, aerodynamically, throughout this regulation period, ever since they grabbed Rob Marshall, has been the top dog, and every team will look at them come in the future. Very scary team for 26 as well. And last, of course, we gotta talk about Ferrari. The rear suspension, it's finally coming, and we actually have some pictures to go over as well. It's been talked about for a while, game changer or not. This upgrade package, so far, from everything I've heard, now, yet again, they've only tested this in a filming date. We haven't actually seen this in race conditions. So we can go off of the pictures, but I'm not going to talk too much about what they've said in this test. They said everything went correctly, and supposedly Ferrari should gain a decent amount of time from this. Some outlets have said about a 10th gain, but the importance of it is really keeping the rear stable. As we've seen from the pictures, there is definitely a more apparent increase in the anti-squat geometry. It's not as dramatic as what Mercedes did in Canada, but the actual changes from the outside don't look as drastic. Obviously, with more anti-squat geometry, it should increase the resistance of the rear end really squatting and depleting that plank more and more throughout the race, which has been their big issue. But a lot of the internal stuff like the gearbox and in general around that area has gone through about 4 months of troubleshooting. So there's definitely a lot of drastic change. It's just not as visual as I guess we were all hoping for, but that shouldn't take away from how big of a deal this upgrade really is for the team. I think it's hard to say if they can actually compete with both Leclerc or Lewis to possibly even challenge for the drivers. But I guess just figuring out this 99% different car would be a good thing for them to end the season off with. It's a really important GP for a lot of teams, and of course McLaren looks like it's going to run away with it. We got Lando and Oscar fighting. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure you guys check out the Unchained Media Inc. site. Go ahead and put in your predictions for Spa. And I would love to hear what you guys think. Do you believe that these upgrades will make any difference at all, really, in the rest of this 2025 season? Leave your thoughts down in the comments below. Please leave a like, subscribe. It'd mean the world. And peace.